What's going on, Chiefs Kingdom? This is Daniel Harms, senior film analyst here at RGR Football. And today we have a very good, fun show for you guys. One of the more experienced previewers, I think, right now in the NFL podcasting industry. One of my good friends, Derek Klassen, over at the Athletic Football Show. He's doing lots of stuff with not just the AFC West preview, which you can go listen to the Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcasts. But he's going to be with me today, also talking about the AFC West. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, it's funny. We lined up this show, and I hadn't even been checking my athletic schedule, and it just turned out that we did our AFC preview like the same day that we're recording all this. So it's literally perfect for me. I am as AFC West ready as it gets.
And that's exactly what we want to hear over here. Now, obviously, this is a Chiefs-centric channel, but for all of us that have seen the last 9 years of the Chiefs dominating the AFC West, there are some changes going on, not just from last year, but going over to this year. We know that happens every single year. When you shift from one year to the other, there's a bunch of stuff that happens. So which non-quarterback / I would say draft pick are you most interested in watching this year when it comes to the AFC West?
There's kind of a lot of interesting ones. I think for me, it is actually probably it's hard for me to pick between the two, but one of Dre Greenlaw or Talanoa Hufanga. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the Denver Broncos defense, but to me, the two things that defense was missing last year was it didn't feel like they had great players in the spine outside of the D-line. I didn't love their linebackers, didn't love the safety room. And even though they were a great defense, they didn't really hit people. They weren't it didn't feel like watching the Texans, But you bring in Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, it kind of fixes both of those issues. So I would say those two get me pretty pumped.
That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I've talked about this pretty much the entire offseason, where I think the Broncos are going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And when you already have a unit that good, you can see what happens when things go that way. And for me, honestly, I know I said no draft pick stuff, but for me, it's not even just necessarily a player. I think it's Pete Carroll in Las Vegas, which that is the shift change from what we've seen over the last few years in LA. Now, excuse me, at Las Vegas, formerly of Oakland. We have a whole dynamic change. And I think that we kind of understand that Pete Carroll is not there to do this for long term. He's trying to set things up, put the groundwork in over there with Las Vegas, and probably set the culture, as I think we see that with John Spytek, now Tom Brady. We know is going to have a couple of things in the oven there, but I know if you guys have been watching me, I've been in multiple different places. So first of all, I'm currently sweating because the airflow here is not great. So I apologize about that, but we are working to get the setup, everything. I'm going to have my monitors up here in a little bit. But when we talk more about the outlook of this division, it's not just about the players and the teams themselves. There's storylines that we want to see every single year that we pretty much just want to see for ourselves. So what's one of those storylines from this AFC West division that you're looking for to kind of manifesting this year?
It kind of a little bit of what you're talking about with Pete Carroll. This was a team that is going from Antonio Pierce, who I get why, based off of a little bit of his interim work, they were like, oh yeah, he can keep the locker room together, all that stuff. But Antonio Pierce was not a guy who had proven he could win in the NFL in any way, really. Yeah. Pete Carroll is the most proven I can win in the NFL guy that they could have gotten this offseason. And so I just think him coming in and kind of instilling a culture, like you said, it reminds me a little bit of I think what the Cardinals really wanted to do when they signed Bruce Arians and then brought in Carson Palmer. And obviously the Raiders version of that is Geno Smith. Funny enough, they were both exactly 34 years old, those two quarterbacks, when they got brought in. So in my mind, I think that Cardinals roster going in was a little bit better and they were able to be a little bit stronger out of the gate. But in my mind, them being some version of that and having that 2-3 year runway where maybe by 2026, 2027, we're oh, that team is kind of really competitive in the divisional round of the playoffs. That's kind of crazy. Something like that is kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I think when we watched what they did with the draft, right, they go ahead and get Ashton Genty, but not just them, the entirety of the AFC West minus the Chiefs said, hey, that guy, Patrick Mahomes, we don't want him to have the football. So let's draft running backs in the first 2 rounds and just try to control the clock. So as you know, I am a Chiefs fan, obviously. Not only that, I cover the Chiefs, but this storyline for me is about it not mattering because Patrick Mahomes is the guy that we all wanted to see last year them air the football out, right? Injuries happened and it kind of derailed their plans. They had to take Xavier Worthy after that Buffalo game and start to, okay, you're going to run out routes. You're going to start timing routes. We're going to start to feed you the football underneath. And we saw that average depth of target go way down. Now we get to see a little bit. It looks like Tyquan Thornton's going to make the roster. As we're recording this, we have not actually seen anything official from the Kansas City Chiefs, as we have come to find ourselves happening every single year. So we're just constantly waiting on them to do things like that. So for me, the storyline is that every team in the AFC West went out and got themselves a running back and kind of a coach that wants to run the football. You got Sean Payton, you have Jim Harbaugh, you have Pete Carroll. They all want to do the exact opposite of what the Chiefs want to do. So for me, it's that watching this storyline, every team wanting to do one thing, and the Chiefs saying, yeah, we don't really care. We're going to go ahead and Patrick Mahomes is still going to derail what you want.
I kind of love that because too, I think it also speaks to like the quality of the division is better than I think I think going into last year, we were like, oh yeah, it's the Chiefs division. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think this year there has been a lot of talk of like, oh, the Raiders might be scrappy. Denver could be like an 11-win team. The Chargers, I think people are still good. But at the end of the day, it's also like, it's still very much the Chiefs division. And so I think that whole, like them trying to take it away from them literally by controlling the ball is kind of a good like analogy for all that.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. And we're going to go ahead and start talking about these AFC West teams with the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland again. One of these days, I will get it down right. I went to Vegas and I saw the black hole, whatever you want to call it, that they have over there. It's a really awesome stadium. And I'm very happy that there's some place now that they can go to at least enjoy the football games before they lose. And right here, when you come off of a 4-13 season, everything has to change, which is exactly what happened. They gutted everything. They bring in John Spytek, as we talked about, as the new GM. Coordinators are different. You've got Chip Kelly. Very, very interested to see what happens with this offense, as Chip Kelly is the offensive coordinator. And Patrick Graham is your DC. We already talked about Pete Carroll. So what are you expecting from this Las Vegas Raiders team? I know you kind of said maybe they're going to be a little scrappy, but from a top-down organizational standpoint, things are going to be different. Lots of new players, mentality. So what are you looking forward to seeing, I guess, from this team this year?
I mean, I think on a more grand view, I just want to like understand the things that they're doing. Like, I just felt like for the last 3-4 years, whether it was the Pierce era or even with Josh McDaniels, I just didn't feel like I understood what the team was even trying to do in a lot of ways. And so even if some of the quality of play is not great, I think especially on defense, if I can at least have some degree of confidence that things are headed in the right direction, that will do a lot for me. And then for me, it's just expecting a lot from the offense. And I think the reason the offense is really interesting is that there are a lot of exciting players, but they're not in the spots that we usually ascribe to like really great offenses. It's usually, a great offense has like an elite receiver. They very much don't have that. They're going to be like a 12 personnel team that also has a really good running back. And when you try to think of the other teams who are built like that, it's like Buffalo is kind of like that. Baltimore is kind of like that. And Detroit is kind of like that. But you can't really compare Buffalo and Baltimore because those two teams have like MVP quarterbacks. And I love Geno, but he's not that. And so they kind of need to be like some version of Detroit, but also like Detroit's offensive line murdered everybody. And I don't think Las Vegas's line is going to do that. And so it's just this funny amalgamation of like some really, really interesting players in weird spots and a coordinator we haven't seen in the NFL in a long time. But also I think the quarterback is good enough to kind of mask some of that stuff. So it's just like, I'm just fascinated to see how this turns out, probably more than any offense in the league.
I mean, there's a lot of changeover, not just from the offseason, but the last couple of days in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We're talking about them. We have Jacoby Myers approaching the team saying, hey, I kind of want to trade. You have them bringing back Amari Cooper. So, I mean, in reality, Jacoby Myers, I like the construction of at least what it looked like it was going to be. Trey Tucker is your slot guy who can be a burner downfield. Dante Thornton Jr., who, again, very unrefined, played at Oregon, played at Tennessee. We talk about Tennessee players not being refined coming into NFL. I mean, it's
Shocking.
just it doesn't get much better for these guys, as Hendon Hooker was released by the Lions earlier today or yesterday. So you have a lot of raw talent, or at least in terms of Dante Thornton Jr. there. And then Jacoby Myers was the one that made it all make sense. He was your Z, move him all over the place. So it all made sense from a structural standpoint. Now you're bringing back Amari Cooper. Maybe Jack Besh is going to be a little bit more of the Jacoby Myers role, but he's really best, in my opinion, as a power slot. There are so many things that you could have about this offense that could have been interesting, and we're going to find out a lot more about it. I think when I look at this defense, right, the defense has been bad for years. And there's a lot of new players. You've got Thomas Booker, Jermaine Pratt, Landon Roberts, Eric Stokes, Jeremy Chin. All these guys are coming in this year. Obviously, they wanted a shift change in what you have. I mean, Pete Carroll really couldn't help himself bringing back Jamal Adams either, right? He wants someone that can just go tear away, just kind of go get the quarterback, see quarterback, go get quarterback. So, I mean, we always kind of aspire you kind of see the Raiders as a team that always has these, I guess, very small expectations. For me, I'm looking at all the changes that they made, and this could be, like you said, a scrappy team. I like some of the guys that they brought in. Cody Linderberg in their 7th round this year. I thought he was a better linebacker at Minnesota than that. Tonka Hemingway should be fun, along with JJ Pegues. Like, I was very interested. You might see him in the backfield with Ashton Genty this year if I was doing something like that. So I think that when you take all of those things, then you have, Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator. This can be a very, I think, fun team this year, and they are actually building the groundwork for a team that can compete in the coming years.
Yeah, this to me is very much like I love what they are, but they're going to be like a turn on the film on Tuesday curiosity team, not this is actually a playoff team. And I think it's probably because of the defense, right? Like, to me, I think the easiest way to explain it is like Jeremy Chin is really cool when he's your 3rd best DB. He's not so cool when he's your best DB. And like, that to me is kind of what this all boils down to.
Well, to that point, I mean, what's it going to take for this team to not only, I would say, compete, but to be taken seriously? Like, what's got to go right for that to actually happen?
I think for me, like, I think there are a lot of parts in the offense I have enough faith in. Like, Genty's going to be good. I love Geno. Bowers is an absolute phenom. So I think the offense, skill player wise, is all set. And I honestly don't expect that much from the defense. So to me, what pushes them into being competitive is like, can this younger offensive line actually give them something? Like, they're settling in JPJ over at guard now, which I think is probably better for him. I did not love a lot of his film at center. You have a solid left tackle in Colton Miller. DJ Glaze showed like enough flashes last year that he's worth giving another shot, but that's like is he going to be Braxton Jones-esque for you, where he's like the 24th best guy at his position, or can he actually become something more? So to me, it's just like, can the offensive line go from interesting to like actually useful?
Yeah, it's the same thing for me, honestly, and it kind of hinders on DJ Glaze becoming something. If I was, watching Ashton Genty, honestly, I was a little bit lower on him than a lot of people, but it's only because he turned down so many outside runs that he had, because he doesn't trust like that burst to get out there to maintain that speed, that curvilinear acceleration. He doesn't really have that. So if you have Colton Miller and DJ Glaze can turn into something, we're talking about a running back that might actually be a little more comfortable running outside or reading off the tackle. But obviously, if this interior is good, it's going to allow him to do exactly what he wants, which is get downhill. We saw it in the preseason. He wants to run people over, and he still can do that. So I think for that to work out, I think a lot of this hinders on DJ Glaze to be able to be not just good for Ashton Genty, but for Geno Smith, who I think you and I both really like Geno Smith a lot, like what he's turned it into, the football IQ, all of that time sitting behind, just waiting, soaking it all up. And he's been very good in Seattle. And now Pete Carroll brings him over here. I think that he's a good quarterback. And this is an offensive line that does need to grow a little bit outside of Colton Miller, and really for DJ Glaze to actually be, he was overdrafted. Like, he just was. Yeah. But at that point, you are betting on talent and traits for guys past the first round. How often do tackles typically hit unless you're the Green Bay Packers? Like, it doesn't really matter unless you're the Packers, and you just find ways to draft these guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, and they just become starters for you anyway. It's frustrating, honestly. I hate the Green Bay Packers a little bit. But the last thing I want to talk about here, who do you think is going to be like a surprise contributor for the Las Vegas Raiders this year? Offense, defense, doesn't really matter.
I mean, like, I'm scared to pick literally anything on defense because just like outside of Max Crosby and Adam Butler, I don't love a lot of these players. This is like less of a surprise thing, I think, but I think people have forgotten that Michael Mayer is like an insanely good player. I think his rookie year was just really weird. And then last year, I think there was clearly something going on behind the scenes that was not football related that kind of left him to be not the player he can be. I just trust that him being here with Pete Carroll, the way they're going to run the offense, I think he's Obviously, he's going to be overshadowed by Brock Bowers, so it's not like he can be that productive, but I think he's going to be very, very good in the chances they get to him.
Yeah, I think that honestly, if they do end up trading Jacoby Myers, we're going to see a lot more 12 anyway, but you might see even more. And you can do, I think Michael Mayer, along with Brock Bowers, you can move these guys around. Like that doesn't have to be pure inline. Obviously, Mayer is more of the all around kind of player. You can put him in the slot, you can put him out wide, but you're going to probably keep him in attached to the line, a little bit of maybe detached or in the slot, but there's a lot you can do with him. And Michael Mayer was my favorite tight end in that class. I had it. He was the only one I had a first round grade on. So I'm with you. This could be a very dangerous tight end room. I think for me, I'm going to the opposite side, and I'm going on a rookie. I think that Darian Porter not only is going to play a lot of snaps for this defense, but because of the natural way that he plays the game and he just sees the football, the effort, I think that's going to win over Pete Carroll immediately. The effort with which he played with at Iowa State is infectious, not only for the defense, but for a coach, an entire young team. It's a new team. They're looking for players that are trying to inject some kind of juice into the defense, whether it's turnovers or big hits. I think he's going to bring a couple of those, a couple PBUs. He's going to go chase someone down for preventing a touchdown, something like that. And those kind of plays just end up impacting the defense, the offense by example as well. So for me, it's Darian Porter in that defense for the Las Vegas Raiders.
It's a good one. I mean, if you're tall and fast and try your heart out, Pete Carroll's going to love you. So,
man, I'm excited. Honestly, I know that they're the Las Vegas Raiders, and you shouldn't always expect them coming off of a 4-13 season to be scrappy. I think they can be a lot of fun. Honestly, the Chiefs have seen the best of them pretty much every single year that they've played. They always put up a good fight just about every single time. So we're going to now switch over to the Denver Broncos. This is the team that everyone has turned into the Los Angeles Chargers since the injuries have started to happen, where they think that they are now the next coming. Honestly, we talked about it. I think they're going to have one of the best defenses in football. But I want to talk about Sean Payton, because I'll be very honest with you guys. I was not expecting to see Sean this kind of Sean Payton again after he left New Orleans. You know, obviously the relationship with him and Russell Wilson wasn't great. There was a lot of him trying to put, felt like training wheels on Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson fighting that. And he's like, no, I don't want to do this. And so a lot of things happen there. And then they get Bo Nix in this offense. I mean, Bo Nix is limited in some of the aspects. Obviously, he's a rookie quarterback, but it looked very good. He started to air the ball out later in the season. So if you're looking strictly at Sean Payton, obviously post New Orleans and Russell Wilson, right, to now, how do you feel about what he's done to this point as a Denver Bronco?
I kind of love Sean Payton. And I think I love Sean Payton a little bit because he just feels different than a lot of the offensive play callers we've gotten used to. Like, I think over the past handful of years, probably the past decade, we've gotten used to the Kyle Shanahans, the Sean McVays, Kevin O'Connell, where everything feels very sequenced and it feels like it's all part of this like grand plan. Sean Payton to me is a little bit more of a grab bag guy, and I kind of admire that about him. He's a little bit more like, what do we need to do to win this week? And there's a little bit more like pure progression in his offense. At its best, I think that was a little bit less true, obviously, last year or the last 2 years with some of the limitations of his quarterbacks. But I find him to have such a fascinating offense. So I really enjoy him for that. I was willing to give him a pass for the Russell Wilson year because kind of like you were hinting at, he very clearly hated calling an offense for Russell Wilson. And I think it was so obvious that I was like, okay, if he gets a quarterback he likes, even if it's a guy who is a little bit more limited in some of the ways that Bo Nix can be, it's like, well, he's going to at least have more fun calling the offense. And also he can impose limits on a young quarterback because the young quarterback's just going to be like, I don't know what's good. I don't know what's what. Fine, do whatever you want with the offense. And so I think because of that, Sean Payton's done a really good job. I am interested to see what the ceiling for the offense can be because I just don't know if they have enough star players. But I do just think that the construction of it, I'm really bought in on.
And, to your point about the offense, it feels like not only does Sean Payton kind of understand what he's doing to win game in and game out, but about the strengths of his quarterback. This is kind of clumping in what I was going to talk about with Bo Nix, but he's a guy who is an accurate quarterback, but ball placement is his biggest problem. And it was his biggest problem coming out of Oregon, in my opinion, where instead of getting the guys like that you want, the speedsters, the yards after catch guys, he went and got. You already had Cortland Sutton, so you already see that. But they drafted Pat Bryant in the 3rd round. Pat Bryant is a guy who's bigger. He's going to make contested catches and help Bo Nix live in a world where he doesn't have to make the perfect throw in tight coverage. He can get it around his receiver and they'll make a play. Obviously, they add Evan Ingram, another, wide receiver-esque tight end. So you're looking at the way that this all functions. Obviously, Troy Franklin, someone he's comfortable with, right? So it all makes sense for Bo. And then they bring in a running back who we'll see how RJ Harvey takes to the offense. I like RJ Harvey. He's explosive. He's just going to get caught from behind more than a couple of times, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to get the breakaway runs, but in the way that Sean Payton has not only catered the team to, really, I think, analyzing every single matchup and exploiting it, but he understands his young quarterback so well. Obviously, when you're going to get him when they did in the first round 2 years ago, it shows that that's exactly what he wanted. Like, we've seen this with Kyle Shanahan. Doesn't want Trey Lance, right? He's like, no, this guy is not going to listen to what I want him to do. That's why I want Mac Jones. That's why, Brock Purdy is working out. But so these offensive coordinators, they get so much praise for the scheming. I think that the relationship that they have with these quarterbacks that they've not only identified, but they obviously can cater to, has really amplified what they're able to do in the NFL.
I think that's such a great point because, like, Bo has a good arm. And like you said, he is, like, directionally accurate. And so they threw down the field a lot because if it's early in the progression, Nix will throw it. He's good early in the down and he'll throw it. He has the arm to make a lot of those throws. Like, this is something I mentioned on a show we did like a month and a half ago. A lot of teams like to use Diggs right now as like a late in the progression, hit the backside, like, it's just my fourth read, throw it under the safety type of deal. The Broncos were just running dagger and using it as like their first progression, like all of the time, in a way that like other teams just weren't, because they were like, well, if it's early in the progression, Bo will throw it, but later in the down, he's not very good at that stuff. So they just didn't put it in the offense. And then they threw a bunch of RPOs because Bo Nix is good at that. Like they did, and they rolled out a lot because Bo Nix is really good at throwing on the run. Like they just, to your point, he really was very tapped into what Bo Nix was capable of and crafted like kind of the perfect offense around it.
Now, let's stick a little bit with this Bo Nix analysis because I think that there's a misconception about what he's really good at. I know he had a really good rookie season. A lot of it was catered from Sean Payton, but the offensive line helped a lot, right? When you have one of the lowest, I believe, pressures allowed in the NFL with an offensive line that's first or second in pass protection, that's going to help you out. Obviously, it was still run first even with that. So how do you feel about Bo Nix entering year 2?
I think it's good that there are clear modes that he can win from. Like I said, he is a fine downfield passer if it's early in the progression. The RPO stuff works for him. He's a useful runner. And so he has enough stuff where I'm like, okay, this is a functional quarterback. But there are still some things that really bug me with him. He is still bad late in the down, especially from the pocket. Like when you start to crush things on him and he gets a little bit crowded, he just is not comfortable. He speeds himself up. He is not as elastic a thrower as it seems he should be for someone who is that athletic. And I think that can be an issue for him. Like last year, out of the 39 quarterbacks who threw at least 200 passes, the only quarterback worse than him on an EPA per play basis was Mac Jones, who was not an NFL starting quarterback going into the year. So that's not a great place to be. And maybe he can get a little bit better, but that's a pretty concerning starting point. And then I think the other interesting thing with him is he wastes a lot of plays. Like he just throws a lot of completions that are frankly useless. Like, so on completed passes last year, he had a 68.4% success rate. The only player worse than him in that metric was Will Levis. When you are in the Will Levis range, that is not a good place to be. And so
got some problems.
You got some problems. And so for me, he's just a guy who I think early in the down can really work well within the structure of the offense. I think the longer he has the ball, the more issues you have with what he can do as a player.
I think that's fair. And honestly, he was a little bit of a late bloomer, right? Obviously, he always had the talent at Auburn, but it was all put on him. He had to do everything at Auburn. He had to make all the calls, right? I think he also had to obviously evade all the pressure because Auburn's offensive line has been abysmal for years. Then he goes to Oregon where, okay, we are doing a lot more where it's structured and this is where the ball is going to go. If it's not here, you already have your check down. Like it's all built in. And then lots of rollouts, lots of movement where he was able to do a lot of what he's doing now. So again, we're going to see offensive line pressures given up is not sticky. Like I would imagine Denver is still a very good offensive line this year, but I don't think they're going to have as successful as a time protecting him as they did last year. Run game is going to change as well. You bring in J.K. Dobbins, you bring in RG Harvey. We're going to have probably a little bit more of an explosive run game to that as well. But the weapons are a little bit better. I still would have liked to see them do more to add to it. I think Marvin Mims is fine. I also think last year was a little bit of a blur. I don't think you're going to see that Marvin Mims this year either. Like it seems a little fake to me. I know that everyone's going to just call me a hater. I wasn't huge on him coming out of Oklahoma, but you see what he is. He's a good downfield player. There's other problems and just the concentration, the ability to run all the routes in the world. But again, with Sean Payton, it's not going to matter. Here's an end around. Here, you're going to be in the backfield, line you up at a linebacker. We're going to find different ways to use your speed against the defense. So offense, I think, is going to be just fine. The problem is that this comes down to if it's a Bo Nix has to win you the football game, probably isn't going to happen in terms of high leverage situations and having to put the ball against man coverage in a tight window. Those are the problems that he still has to get through. I'm not saying he can't get better, but those right now are really the end-all be-alls of what he is as a quarterback. And when you have Sean Payton calling plays for you, it definitely helps out. Over on the defensive side, you mentioned Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga already. Do you think, I mean, already mentioned it, but do you believe this is going to be the best defense in the NFL?
I think like predicting the best defense is always a little bit trickier than the best offense because with offense you can just pick the quarterback. But I think if I had to like make a bet today, it would be them or Houston as the best defense in football. Like you have the best cornerback in the league, in my opinion, or I mean everyone's opinion. He won Defensive Player of the Year. You're better at safety now with Hufanga. Dre Greenlaw to me is like, I know maybe coming off the injury, he might not be the player that he used to be, but like when he was healthy, he was like the 6th best linebacker in the league. Like he was awesome. And so I think that could really help. And then the front, it's not just that they have a lot of good starters. Like they've got depth at pass rusher. Like their D line has a couple of decent depth pieces. Like they've just got dudes all over. And I think Vance Joseph is one of those guys that because some of his head coaching stints have not gone so well, we forget that he's like a really, really good play caller. So there's a pretty good chance that this defense could be fantastic.
It happens all over the league. Like I think that Matt Eberflus is going to get this too. Well, I think he's a great defensive mind. He's now going to be a defensive coordinator, but he's going to get a lot of stink because, well, you weren't a very good head coach. Vance Joseph is going to get the same stuff. But what happens? This is one of the most consistently good defenses year in and year out. And honestly, I didn't predict it happening, but Nick Bonito is a dude. Like this guy, I was not expecting it. And again, he was predominantly a speed rusher coming out of college. But he has turned it. It's been what, 3? Now he's entering year 4, if I'm not mistaken. So last year is when you started to see the power for him to come through. Some of those smaller guys coming out take some time, but he has really developed that speed to power. So if he can't win around, he's going to go through you. And you saw multiple times last year where he's developed the hand usage that he already has the better athletic ability to get around the edge. So now he can go through you to really team it up. And like you talked about earlier, this defense is going to hit you now. Like they've got some guys that are just going to wall off and just go downhill and hit you. They add Jody Barron to the mix, one of the smartest guys in the draft last year. And one of my favorite sleeper picks, Savion Jones out of LSU. Like I wanted that guy in Kansas City. Just the length, he can play inside, he can play outside. Like I love those kind of players. So this defense is going to be nasty. It's going to be hard to score points, and they are going to make you feel their presence every single down. Talk about feeling your presence. Jim Harbaugh is the one guy I think you feel presence, not just with when he takes over an organization. It's every time he enters a room, you know, that's Jim Harbaugh. It's not just the khakis, it's just the way he presents himself. This team last year was second in the AFC West, 11-6. Personally, I think that we're going to probably see a little bit of a down year from the Chargers, not just because of the injuries, by the way. I was kind of feeling that way coming off of last year. But speaking to the injuries, how do you feel about this team being plagued every single year? Like what's in the water? How did it get from San Diego to LA? How did it follow that?
It's only a few hours away, so maybe it doesn't really have that far to travel. I really don't know what it is. Like it seems like there really is something with this team every year, and like Slater is the team's second best player, probably, like behind Justin Herbert. Like it's probably him after Herbert. Yep. And so the fact that he's going to be down for the way he is, like I think so much of what's interesting about the Slater thing, particularly this year, is the Chargers won 11 games last year and then went into this offseason and we're like, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to run back the same roster and have our draft picks and we're going to be great. And all they did was their only major signing was signing Mekhi Becton, which like for the money that they paid him and for the swings they needed to make, it totally makes sense. But now with the Slater injury, they're basically the offensive line is just adding Becton and taking out Slater, which is it's net negative, even if Becton like is what you want him to be. And so it's just a really unfortunate spot. Like we have not really ever seen Justin Herbert with a good offensive line. And I think this felt like it might've been the first time we got close, and it does not seem like that's going to be the case.
It's as much as, obviously with the rivalry and everything, you want to see a good opponents. And I just, every year, I mean, didn't just start with the Tyrod Taylor needle in the chest.
Oh
like it didn't
God.
start there, but like it's been every single year. And I don't know what it is, maybe Joey Bosa. Here we go. If Joey Bosa plays the full season in Buffalo, we can officially burn down the Los Angeles Chargers, everything. Like, we know it's them. We can figure this out. If you can leave the Chargers and be healthy, we know the actual problem. I mean, I don't, it's so tough to watch, especially because, like you said, with Rashawn Slater, he just got paid. He deserved every cent of that money. He's a franchise left tackle. I mean, a lot of people dogged him coming out because he didn't have the longest arms in the world. Technique matters so much, and we're going to find that out with Will Campbell in New England. Can he get that technique down? But Rashawn did, and it was so obvious that he was so good. So it's frustrating to watch good players, because I'm not just a fan of the Chiefs. I'm a fan of the players of the NFL, all of this stuff, and it's frustrating every single year that they just have players that can't stay healthy. But Justin Herbert, the social media quarterback, as it was made, ridiculous thing. Justin Herbert's really good at football, guys. I don't know if you know, we've watched him 2 times a year ever since the Tyrod Taylor incident. Funny enough, but is this the year? Is this the year finally that not only, I think he played well last year, obviously with offensive line concerns behind you. Is this the year that he puts it together? You have better weapons, and they kind of let him be him, right? They kind of let them do that.
It's tough to answer that question. I think in terms of the way that people are going to perceive him, I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think anything is going to change for the way that people talk about Herbert until this team wins a divisional round game. Until this team finally looks like, okay, this is what all the other AFC quarterbacks have been able to do. Why can't you do it? I think until he does that, they're just not going to take him seriously. I am interested to see what year 2 of Herbert loosening up again looks like, because I think some of the criticisms you could have of Herbert, even if he was really good from 2021 to 2023, he could be a little bit Derek Carr-ish in that he was probably checking down a little bit too early, wasn't using his legs the way that you would want him to for a guy who is that athletic. And I do think last year he opened up a lot. He actually was more aggressive down the field. He did not check down as quickly as he used to. He was more willing to make some of those aggressive outside of the pocket throws that I think at Oregon were why people got a little bit excited about him, and especially early on in his career. So if that's something he can continue to build on, and then one of these rookie skill players pops, if it's Trey Harris, if it's Lambert Smith, I really don't care who it is. If one of these guys is useful, I think the combination of those two things, again, the perception is not going to change, because I don't think this is an AFC championship caliber team. But in terms of him actually playing better, I think that could happen.
Realistically, looking at the weapons, I know Keenan Allen's back. Whatever, that's going to take targets away from Keandre Lambert Smith and Trey Harris. That's a little frustrating, but it all makes sense to me, at least skill set wise. Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Trey Harris. You bring in Keandre Lambert Smith. Quentin Johnston's going to see the ball a little bit, because again, he's still a useful player with the ball in his hands. You just got to limit the amount of time the ball's in the air for him. The less time he has to think, the better chance he has to catch the football. And honestly, I like Darius Davis as just a pure speed guy down the field. So it all kind of makes sense for what they want to do. And like you talked about last year, I mean, Josh Palmer was getting open downfield a lot. And he was just like, I'm going to throw the football, because at some point you have to stop being afraid of turning the football over. I think that's one of the big things, is that Justin Herbert didn't want people to start thinking of he was the Oregon quarterback. He wanted to, okay, look, I'm going to not turn the football over. When you get like that, like you're talking about, it is Derek Carr. I don't want to turn the football over, so we're not taking risks. So you see how this can really add to it. Ladd McConkey does have speed, but he is not going to win downfield. He's going to win in the middle. He's going to find soft spots, and then he's going to use lateral speed to get open, which is exactly what you want. Trey Harris, please catch the football. Just please. That's all I'm asking. He's a good route runner. He's underrated in space for his size and speed overall. But all you have to do is catch the football. You had some of those ridiculous, weird concentration drops at Ole Miss. We got to clean that up. Honestly, I know it's preseason. I know it is, but Keandre Lambert-Smith looked really damn good. And I was like watching him at Auburn, like getting ready for the cycle, and I'm like, this guy's kind of fun. Like he could really be something. So if he hits, not only can this offense actually take a step forward with Herbert, but realistically, we know they want to run the football. We know Jim Harbaugh. That's why they drafted Amari and Hampton. We talked about every single team drafting a running back in the first couple of rounds. You have Najee Harris, who was just activated, I believe, today to the active roster. So it looks like they're going to have a 1-2 punch. They can run play action. He can be aggressive. I don't care if the public perception doesn't change, because what really matters is the tape. And Justin Herbert is legitimately one of the best quarterbacks in football. So I'm excited to see what he does there. This is an interesting one because Jesse Minter last year as a rookie defensive coordinator in the NFL put some things on tape that a lot of people weren't expecting. He was creative. There was one of the blitzes that he got Patrick Mahomes on in the week 4 game that Patrick even said, I had never seen that before, and he got him holding the ball and got him in a sack in that situation. So what can we expect from Jesse Minter in year 2? Can he get the most out of these players like he did last year?
I think what I'm interested with, and this goes back to the idea that the Chargers added basically nothing, especially on defense, like it's pretty much all the same players. And what that amounted to last year was, yes, like Minter, I think the way that he calls his blitzes is really well done. I think the way that the coverage is coached is like everybody clearly understands their assignment and is in the right spot all the time. The way those young corners played and the way that Henley played, I think that is very obvious. The issue to me is last year's defense was like really, really good at beating every offense that was not a top 8 offense. And then you run into one of the juggernauts and you get hammered by teams like Tampa Bay. The Bengals gave them a run. There were a number of other teams, like the teams that could really play serious offense. I just don't think the Chargers had the firepower for it. And I think that like ties into a little bit of some of Minter's play calling. Like for as aggressive or for as creative as I think he is, it's also a little bit of a conservative defense. Like they throw interesting like Sims and stuff, but they're not like a super high blitz team. Yeah. I think that's part of it. They can't play man coverage by virtue of the corners that they have, which I think to me, man coverage is like a symbol of aggressiveness. And I always love to be able to see that. And so that's not really something they do. They also, when they brought pressure, when they brought at least 5 guys, they ran cover 3, like just kind of basic fire zones at like the 4th highest rate in the NFL. I think we're moving to a league where like as much of that, as little of that as you can do, I think is actually more advantageous. So that's probably the thing that I want to see him tweak. And then maybe if 1 or 2 of these players step up, they can be a little bit more aggressive. But they're really good at making teams be perfect. But the top 7, 8 offenses in a given year like can be perfect.
Yeah, to your point, like some of the guys in the back end, obviously you got Terry Steele and Cam Hart, who aren't the most athletic guys on the field. I know that Cam Hart had a good showing at the combine that year, but in reality, when you turn on the tape, he's a smart football player. He's going to be in the right spot, like you said. But those offenses, when they have really good players or a quarterback that can manipulate you a little bit, put you out of position just a touch, you don't have the athletic ability to just kind of recover and make those plays. So they are really counting on Daiyan Henley, who I really like, by the way. I was like sneakily high on him coming out of the draft. I was like, I mean, he can kind of play. Obviously, these former safeties, it's hard to judge where they're going to get, how they can develop. Not all of them turn into studs. So seeing him be that good last year, they're kind of counting on him to take not just that step, but another step this year to actually round out the second level. Because, I mean, guys, it's 2025 and Denzel Perryman is still playing football for this football team. Like, it's still happening. This is still a thing.
That one's tough for me because, like, Denzel Perryman is what he is at this point in his career. But I do love watching him play. He's just an angry little man. And so it's like, that's one of those guys that, like, you shouldn't be on the field at this stage in your career. But selfishly, it's like, I love watching it.
Yeah, it's at this point, like you said, what's he supposed to do? He just got to use his anger to his advantage. So just run forward, buddy. We don't want you going backward at this point. We really don't want that to happen. So I'm a little dubious that he can continue to squeeze the rock, because that's pretty much what this lemon has turned into. There's not much left to squeeze out of the defense. So when you have injuries, I'm excited about Jamar Caldwell. I kind of like what RJ Mickens might be able to bring in a purely nickel like blitzing perspective early on. I think that Derwin James is going to be a really good coach for him on the field when he's out there. I think you can see some creative sets with that. Elijah Molden out there too. They have a lot of interesting players, I think is what I come down to on this side of the football for the Chargers. But that's the Los Angeles Chargers, and this is what you guys have all been waiting for. Yes, it's last, so you guys stick around. We all know that the Kansas City Chiefs won the division last year at 15-2. Now this is the big storyline, which is apparently everywhere. It's been talked about the demise of the Kansas City Chiefs after losing a Super Bowl, appearing in the third straight Super Bowl. That's what spells demise for teams, as we all know. So coming off a season with tons of one-score games, you have lucky, quote unquote, lucky wins, like namely against the Denver Broncos, where they probably should have lost. You get the blocked field goal at the end, you end up winning. What's this going to look like for you this season? You already have a Rashee Rice suspension on the horizon. Do you think that this Super Bowl hangover for the team is not just a reality, but it could seep into a real future for this football team?
Not at all, honestly. Like when you have Patrick Mahomes, I don't think Super Bowl hangover really exists. For me, like they will not win 15 games again. Like again, they did get lucky to win that many games, sure, but I think they'll probably be a better football team. I think, and we'll talk about a little bit of this. I think there's a chance the defense is worse, but I think the offense will be better. And when the offense is better and the quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, it's kind of all that matters. Like if we can get to January and the Chiefs are the third best offense in the NFL, it's like, okay, well, that is probably a team I'm going to pick to be in the Super Bowl again. So I think there's going to be some sort of hangover stuff. Again, like I guess Kelsey's getting a year older. You have the Rashee Rice thing, but they'll probably not get as lucky. So maybe they only win 12 games this year, but boo-hoo. I think 12 games is enough to win this division. So,
Travis may be getting a year older, but he's going to feel a lot younger after he got engaged to Taylor Swift earlier today. So there's a whole engagement boost. As Andy Reid said, he looks svelte. So there's a lot going on, I think, right now for Kansas City. But we know, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Everyone, if you're watching The Kingdom right now, the documentary on ESPN, it's not fun. But also put in perspective that the Chiefs went to 3 straight Super Bowls. How often does that happen? When you won the first 2, like that doesn't happen very often. So they got demolished by the Eagles, not just because they couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes, but they couldn't effectively rush. So we talk about the offensive line changes. From center to right is still the same. It's Creed Humphrey, it's Trey Smith, and it's Jawan Taylor. You have Kingsley Suamataia, who was a second-round draft pick last year at tackle, now bumped inside to play left guard after Joe Thuney was traded to the Chicago Bears this offseason, and they draft Josh Simmons. I had Josh Simmons going to the 49ers at pick 11. That's how high I figured he would go, and I thought that this whole injury stuff would just be kind of looked past. And once we figured out that it wasn't just a completely torn patella tendon, it was only a partial tear, that was when I was like, okay, he should probably be going a lot higher. So do you think this offensive line, obviously the bar is really, really low here from last year, do you think it's going to improve based on what we've seen in the past?
I really think it should, because I'm kind of with you on Simmons. Like, I don't think if he would have gone 11, I don't think that would have been crazy to me. Like he was a sick player. I do think if Simmons is even an average NFL tackle, which again, that is a far cry from what they got at that position last year. I think if he is even that, I think it solves a couple of issues. I think in pass protection, part of the reason to me they have struggled to access the go ball is that the only way that they can reliably throw down the field right now is like, okay, 7-8 man protection under center. We're going to like pray that we can wad it up and we're going to chuck it to Xavier Worthy. Whereas like in 2020, 2019, all that stuff, they could just do like gun 4 and 5 man drop back stuff. And it's like, Pat will figure it out, because he had time to be able to do that stuff. Yeah. So I think if they can get back to a little bit of that solves that issue a little bit. And then in the run game, particularly last year, and you can tell me if you feel the same way, it felt like they had to RPO everything to make the run game work. If Simmons can like add a little bit of oomph and Suamataia can add a little bit of that to where they don't feel like every run piece has to be attached to an RPO, I think that starts to unlock the offense a little bit again as well.
Yeah, the run game is a point of contention in Kansas City right now. My coworker Ryan as well, we hate what's going on. What happened last year? They could only run the ball in between tackles. Like they were efficient. It was effective. You're getting 5, 6, 7 yards of carry sometimes, but when you cannot stress defenses to the outside, they're like, fine, we don't care. we don't care.
Get 4 yards
so,
at a time. I don't care.
Right. So when, like, to your point about attaching an RPO to it, if there's no threat to the flat, guess where that defender is going to be? Hi, I'm right here. Throw the football. Like, he's waiting for it the entire time when there's no real threat. You run an RPO action with an outside zone look. Okay, fine. Kareem Hunt, you're going to hand him the football in an outside zone from shotgun? No, you're not going to do that because he can't do anything with it. So I think that not just a healthy Isaiah Pacheco, not a perfect player by any stretch. I don't even think he's best running to the outside the tackles, but that's neither here nor there. If Brashard Smith can give you just a touch there, you might be able to do something different. But to the key point here, not Isaiah Pacheco, Kingsley Suamataia and Kingsley, I just said Kingsley, and Josh Simmons. Last year was a big thing for me. I was on the develop Kingsley boat like the entire time, and then Andy Reid said 2 games, and no, you get nothing. Like, we know he's a developmental prospect. He needs more than 2 games, but that's neither here nor there anymore. It's all over. Josh Simmons is the future. So those guys give pop. They've been doing it in the preseason too. Like, they've been able to get on double teams, and you can see the push in the run game. So I mean, that last preseason game against the Bears, they were moving guys. So I'm excited about the upside there. We know what Creed and Trey Smith are. Juwan Taylor is kind of this weird. Sometimes you get really good play out of him. Sometimes he's penalized too much. Then you bring in Jalen Moore as you thought was going to be your left tackle, turns into your swing tackle, which I think is great for them. They haven't had any depth at all for years. That being said, Joe Thuney had to play tackle last year. It shows you how much real depth they had. So offensive line is what it is, right? I think that as they grow, they can actually throw the football down the field. And once Patrick gets comfortable, that's what this comes back to, right? So this wasn't on the show sheet, but I'm interested now that we've kind of seen some of Tyquan Thornton getting a big pass here. Honestly, if you watch the preseason games, all of the quarterbacks, there was an effort made to throw the football down the field from Gardner Minshew, from Chris Oladokun, even from Bailey Zappi. Do you think that this is the year that we actually get the explosiveness back?
I do. Like, hell or high water. It might not be great. It might not be as good as it used to be, but like hell or high water, they're going to try it. And again, some of that goes back to what I was saying with Simmons, and then potentially being able to do that more from drop back and not having to feel like they just have to wad everything up. But also, like, if all of the receivers are healthy, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown, like, is a receiving core that should be able to stress you down the field. It's just that last year they were never all healthy together, and Xavier Worthy was a rookie. And so I think if those two factors can come together, even to like the 70th percentile of whatever the potential for all that is, I think we're going to get a lot more of the deep ball. It also seems like it's the only thing Patrick Mahomes can talk about is wanting to throw the ball down the field again. And so, like, it might not be great, but he's sure going to try it.
We've seen the not great. If it's Tyquan Thornton over MVS, sign me up all day long. Because even if he's there, he's going to catch the football. We've already seen it. I've already seen him catch it. I'm already bought in on that. So MVS was just released by the Seahawks as well. So that's going well for them. Speaking of going well, Steve Spagnuolo is one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time. I've been saying it for a long time. He's obviously one of the best game. Like you talked about Sean Payton being like one of the best preparers. Steve Spagnuolo is probably the best single game. Give me what I need to do and I'll go execute it guy in the NFL. And I know that you're big on George Karlaftis. I've listened to a lot of the athletic football show, so I hear a lot of you're being up on him. Obviously, without Chris Jones, what can this pass rush be? We've seen, they draft Ashton Gelati. Felix Anudike-Uzomah did not pan out. He's on IR. What do you think that they can actually do that's not Chris Jones related to get after the quarterback this year?
We're going to have to go back to more of like the early Steve Spagnuolo stuff where he was even more aggressive with the pressures and stuff like that. Because I really think that's the only way that this is going to work. Like, to me, I think the way that you can really see how a couple of years of really trying to reinvest more in the offense has hurt the defense. Mike Dana used to be a player for them who would come off the bench and give them really good snaps. And now he's probably starting along George Karlaftis. That's just not a really good spot to be. And so I kind of like what like Ashton Gelati can be, but he to me is, even if he hits, he probably to me is like a Tuli Pelotu, like best as a third rusher type of guy. And like that could be useful for them, but I don't think that's going to really tilt anything. And then I did not love Norman Lott coming out of college, in part because he just didn't play a lot. That was something that bugged me a little bit. So I'm a little bit dubious that the pure 4-man rush is going to do a whole lot. I think we're going to need a lot of Steve Spagnuolo magic, which, to be fair, we've seen, and he can do it. If I had to pick 5 guys on my hand right now to go do it, he'd be one of them. But it's going to be asking a lot.
Yeah, that's been I think my biggest hookup with the defense is that I do expect them to probably still be a top 10 scoring defense, but pressure, they're going to collapse pockets. They just can't disengage. Like you see, even George Karlaftis, it takes him another half second to disengage, but that's what this is built on. It's, hey, Chris, you have to be healthy the whole season. If you're not, we're going to struggle. And Omar Norman Lott, to your point, I think they asked way too much of him. He put on nearly 15 pounds this offseason, and they played him at 1 tech. And while there's like, okay, the body type, okay, I can kind of see it. He's got some length. He's a little bit stockier, but you're asking a guy who won based off of explosiveness and gap shooting to now take on double teams as a 1 tech. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then, you bring back Derek Nottie, which suggests that, the plan isn't going well and we need someone. So, I mean, that's something I could talk about for a long time. And I will for the members. You guys don't worry. The rant is coming for that on that end. But overall, the pressures from a basic 4-man pass rush have not been consistent for years. And I still think it's kind of funny that Brett Veach was like, hey, Spags, you're having trouble generating pressure. Let me trade for Josh Uche, who is just very clearly a third down, go get the quarterback guy. And he said, no, you're going to play off-ball linebacker. I don't want this guy on my team. Like, he clearly has an idea, and I get what he wants. But an Ashton Gelati isn't going to really do a lot for you right now. The best version of FAU coming out of college was a guy explosive off the edge. They said, hey, put on 20 pounds, be better against the run, and play the way we want you to play. So I love Steve Spagnuolo, guys. I love him. I disagree with how he goes about generating a pass rush. However, when you can take Trent McDuffie, put him in the slot, or maybe Noah Williams, you bring down Chamari Connor, you blitz all these different guys off the edge, he's going to be able to continue to do that. But in games where you're getting kind of beaten up by a quarterback that sees where the holes are, you have to be able to win based off a 4-man pass rush. And there's only so many times you can single Chris Jones up on a tight end or a tackle and get that pressure. So I am concerned about that. But overall, this is who the Kansas City Chiefs are. It's been their identity for years, and they've won the 3 straight Super Bowls. And Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes want to go out this year with another one. So the last question that we have for you, who's going to win the AFC West?
It's the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this is probably the easiest division to pick for as long as Patrick Mahomes is in the league.
It's always the Jason McIntyres of the world that are calling the demise. If you guys are listening, don't go and look up Jason McIntyre's name on Twitter right now. There's a lot of things out there that you probably don't want to read. But very, very thank you. Very much thank you, Derek, for joining us today. Be sure to let everyone know where they can find you, all your work, everything great, all the great stuff you're doing.
Yeah, you guys can always find me on the Athletic Football feed. Obviously, we've got, for the last couple of weeks, it's been 5 shows a week. It is not going to be that crazy during the season. It's going to be a little bit less toned down than that. And then if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on QB Class at Blue Sky.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Don't forget, we'll have far more content as the season gets closer. Now, this is Tuesday. We're recording this. We are 10 days away from Chiefs versus Chargers in Sao Paulo. Hopefully the field is not a soccer field, and if it is, please take better care of it than you did last year with the Eagles and the Packers. But we'll see you guys next time. I hope you have a great day, and don't forget, if you're new to the channel, hit the sub button and the like on your way out.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more, and subscribe to RGR Football.